I also said, by the way, that his killing was absolutely horrific, and the killing of that Ukrainian refugee was absolutely horrific. And I utterly condemn, as any right-minded person should, all forms of political violence. I was disappointed but not surprised that in his speech, Donald Trump focused on the radical left, and there is obviously a problem with radical left violence, and I utterly condemn it. But of course, there have been vicious attacks against Democrats as well, and they were not called out by the president. We've got to be consistent on this. To my mind, there is no space for hate speech. We've seen after this horrific killing quite a lot of prominent figures on the right in America, and I suspect in Britain as well, calling out hate speech on the left. I have always called out hate speech on the left, on the centre, on the right. But of course, there's a lot of hate speech coming from the very same people on the right who call out hate speech now on the left. We have to be consistent.
But do you not see that, with all due respect, you're part of the problem?
No, I do not.
I'll explain why. Because when describing why you felt that Charlie Kirk was divisive, and you're absolutely entitled to that view, lots of people think
it's not a controversial view.
I didn't say it was. I said you're entitled to that view.
It's your reason that's controversial.
But your reason that you gave me was that he highlighted the murder of a white woman whose killer happened to be black, and he'd cropped the killer out. But there was no denying the guy had his hand on the railing because that's where the girl's head was. And you use that as an example of him being racist.
And what you asked me to flesh that out a little bit more, and I can. Charlie Kirk was involved in the days before his horrific killing in a massive debate surrounding the also horrific killing of this young Ukrainian refugee. And it revolved around the politicisation or not of horrific events like that, and he was comparing the response to the killing. Let me explain. He was doing the politicising by saying that when George Floyd was killed, the country was sort of brought to a standstill by Black Lives Matter, and the same was not happening in response to this.
True.
And that in itself, I question the motives, but it's certainly reasonable territory for conversation. What I object to is what I object. I've just said I think it's reasonable to question it, but I wonder what his motives were. What I found very problematic with that post, which is an example that I gave in response to this question that you both put to me, which is why was he divisive? To say that America will never be the same again, I stand by my view. He would not have put those words alongside that horrific image had the killer, or the alleged killer, I should say, have been white.
Can I just focus on what Charlie Kirk really stood for? You say he was divisive. He spoke to a generation that were promised if they go to university, if they work hard, they will own a home, right? Instead, we have a generation in this country as well who did exactly that. They don't have a home. Our successive governments, low interest rates, quantitative easing have created asset bubbles. They are priced out of ever owning a home. Wages are stagnant. Inflation is rampant all the time. You work hard and you don't get anything back.
You're advocating high interest rates on national TV.
No,
you just blamed previous administrations for low interest rates.
Zero interest rates create an asset bubble. It is only good if you have access to debt. If you don't have access to debt, then you know that it creates asset bubbles.
So as a reform councillor, just to be clear, you are calling live on national television for high interest rates.
When you have zero interest rate, it erodes our savings because we get no interest on it, and it creates asset bubbles. Okay, and if you do have
high interest rates, make it very difficult for people to get mortgages. You made a point about the white working classes earlier, and I fully support you. I fully support you in giving voice to white working class boys.
About working class
Are you an expert in my public appearances? I've been on TV and radio for hundreds of hours.
Have you ever spoken about it?
Of course I have.
No, you haven't.
You're accusing me of being a liar now. I hosted a national radio show for 4 years in which, by the way, I talked about the white working classes, and rightly so, because the white working classes, I think you have a point, have been underrepresented for too long. But it's not a new thing. And please don't accuse me of lying, because that's really weak debate.
I'll tell you someone that I do want to focus on, Keir Starmer. After this horrendous murder of Charlie Kirk, Keir Starmer put a tweet out. The final segment on there was that we must all be free to debate openly and freely without fear. There can be no justification, he says, for political violence. I want to focus in on that final part of that tweet, and I'll do that after the break.
Have you had a random call lately from a strange number, maybe trying to sell you something or even scam you? If so, your info could be out there. That's because of data brokers, shady companies that scrape the internet for your personal details and sell them to marketers or even scammers. These days, scammers can even use AI to mimic your friends' voices and trick you into sending money. It's not just annoying. Data brokers often target vulnerable people with high-interest loans or sketchy offers. But there is a solution. Incogni, the sponsor of this video. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and requests your info be deleted from their databases. And because your data can keep popping up, Incogni keeps sending removal requests to make sure it stays gone. They've just launched a new unlimited plan with custom removals. If you find your info on a weird website, just send them the link and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Getting started is easy. Hit the link in the description, create your account and let Incogni handle the rest. It's risk-free for 30 days and you'll get 60% off an annual plan with the code GBNews. Take back control of your data with Incogni.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry, Lalia Cunningham and Matt Stadlen. Now, before the break, I was showing you Keir Starmer's reaction to that horrendous murder of Charlie Kirk. Let me get back on the screen. He expresses his sympathy, of course, to Charlie Kirk's very young family. But he ends by saying we must all be free to debate openly and freely without fear. There can be no justification for political violence. Lalia Cunningham, what's your response to that final segment of that tweet?
So what I'd really want to tell Keir Starmer, if you really believe that, then remove the online safety bill. And I know that Matthew is going to say that there is a limit to free speech. And my question back to him is who sets that limit? Because once you silence dissent, you silence democracy. And free speech is never a luxury. It's the foundation of a free society. And back to Charlie Kirk, it was the left that demonized him. It was the left that called Trump, Nazi, Hitler. I get it as part of reform. I'm racist. I'm a Nazi. I'm and that kind of language, I'm sorry, is used mainly by the left to attack the right. That is the issue. I don't hear the right calling the left anything half as horrific. There is nothing worse than being called a Nazi, and the left use it freely. Do you know how many times I've been called that online or to my face? First question when I defected was, how can you join a racist party? They're racist. But when I ask them to point to one racist thing that Reform has said or done, they can't.
So Lalia, first of all, condemn completely all the abuse and hate you've received. I can tell you I've received my fair share and do every single day on social media. There's no place for it on any side of any part of the political spectrum. I'm pleased you brought in Charlie Kirk's family because we should obviously be thinking of them. And I, in fact, in that brief period before we knew whether he had been killed or not, I said a prayer for him myself.
That's one of his little girls on the screen, by the way. He's there with his little girls.
On the question of Keir Starmer, I think that the online safety bill is a bill that is designed to protect children. We're all parents sitting in this room. And the idea that Keir Starmer is against free speech to me seems absurd. I think one of the reasons we've got into this tangle is because, as I said earlier on in the show, we have now social media, and social media can't be beyond the law, because if I incite someone to go and murder someone, I should rightly be arrested for that. But it is a difficult area because at the same time as what I've just said, I think being right, we don't want the police having to constantly sift through, if that's what they're doing, tweets to look for possible breaches of the law, because otherwise we wouldn't have a functioning police force. So it's a really difficult area. It is not new to Starmer's Labour administration. This is not a Labour-specific issue, but it is an important issue, and we need as a society to try to get it right.
Let me ask you a question, Matthew. Have you ever called Reform a racist party?
No.
OK. But people
have
on
you
the
called
left
them a far-right party?
I can't remember what I've called them two years ago.
I would certainly
have called them hard right. And free speech, by the way, involves, of course, being able to call accurately as you see it a political party.
That wasn't my point. My point is, why are we hard right? What part of reform policy is hard right?
The constant focus on immigration, legal and illegal, and the encouragement by Nigel Farage of people peacefully to go and protest outside people's homes, which asylum hotels are.
They're not their homes.
No, that is where they live at the moment.
Not their homes.
That's where, and if your children were in those homes, and if my children, let me just finish, if your children were in those homes or my children in those homes, we would feel appalled, and I thought it was disgraceful of Nigel Farage, and I'm very happy to call Reform, the party you represent, hard right, and that is my free speech, and it's not inciting violence against you because I condemn any hate against you, but I will call you hard right because I think you are.